Hi, I'm Jason Gorber from ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about the Beatles. Let It Be.
Shelf.
So, Let It Be, last record recorded by the Beatles, not the last record released, that would be Abbey Road. Originally going to be titled Get Back. This was all part of a grand movie project. A documentary was going to be made while they were at Elstree Studios, I believe. Might have been Twickenham. Regardless, one of the studios, a bunch of cameras captured them. Ended up a film that I've never actually seen because it's never been in particularly great quality. And here we are on the 50th-ish anniversary of when it was recorded, and we're getting another chance to have a Beatles box set celebrating it. Look at a first pressing, not a first pressing, a UK pressing anyway. I unfortunately can't afford a first pressing. This is how it came after an original box set. The original box set sort of came with very plain, without any of the writing on the outside. Inside was a hardcover book. It came out that way in Britain and a couple other countries, like Canada. I actually don't have one of these, but this is from my blue box, BC13 box. But yeah, a really solid record. Two of Us, Dig a Pony, Across the Universe, I Mean Mine, Dig It, Let It Be, obviously the glorious Let It Be. Maggie May, I've Got a Feeling, One After 909, Long and Winding Road, For You Blue, and Get Back. Now the whole notion of this was to essentially, after all their craziness, after all the stuff that was so challenging to get together, inter sort of band nonsense, they really wanted to strip it all down and get it all sort of back to where they were, sort of bring some of that, some of those feelings that they got when they were playing the clubs in Hamburg and stuff like that. So that's why One After 909 is a song that goes back years. I mean, it's so funny to think about, like, I guess the 6-7 years between when they were playing Hamburg and sort of breaking up, and here we are 50 years later. But nonetheless, the music was changing so dramatically, so much, that they really wanted to do this sort of stripped down, four guys in a band making the music without all the stuff that they sort of helped popularize, all the sort of in-studio stuff, culminating, of course, in the rooftop performance on Abbey Road. All of this will be playing out in Peter Jackson's reclamation of some of this footage, and it's, I guess, 6-hour, 3-part Get Back movie. I cannot wait for that. But all tied to that, we have all the stuff that's going on. Now, Let It Be ended up being assembled with a whole bunch of tapes, in part, almost entirely by Phil Spector, who Spectorized it. Look, Phil Spector's a convicted murderer. He's very complicated, obviously, in terms of the history of rock and roll. Incredibly important, incredibly influential, incredibly damaged individual. But when it came to his production, he certainly had a shtick. It seems to me that the Beatles really love these producers that would instill a very particular sound. As much as we think of George Martin tied to the Beatles, we don't think of George Martin outside of the Beatles and stuff he did. By the time that they work with people like Phil Spector and then Jeff Lynne, who did so many of their solo works, these are between Spector and Lynne, these are producers with a very specific sound. Specific drum sounds, specific string arrangements, etc., etc. Lynn's very much a student of Phil, but has a very particular sort of cacophonous sound. So if you listen to Freeze a Bird and all the stuff that Jeff Lynne ended up doing, even the Traveling Wilburys stuff that George ended up doing, it's a very particular shtick. In the same way, Phil Spector, here's a guy who was super into mono, obviously, but more importantly, he put in the wall of sound. The guy that sort of facilitate that notion that bigger is always better, that if you could take something, even if it's delicate, and actually sort of blow it up into something real big. The original mix was done by Glynn Johns, the original sort of mixing and mastering engineer, an actual engineer during the recording. But after that, Glynn Johns' sort of raw recordings, as it were, we got this, which was the release version. This is the version for all of these years. They did do a release, and this is a shockingly expensive record now, but Let It Be Naked. This is a very Paul project, but it basically strips down all the Spector stuff and literally makes it naked. It makes it feel much more like what the actual studio environment was like. I weirdly, this is not always my go-to, because some of them, especially things like Across the Universe, I actually think that really work well when you have some of the bigger bombast of Phil Spector's introduction. But obviously stuff like Get Back, really stripped down on Let It Be Naked, pretty phenomenal. So somewhere in between these, something that's a little bit less Phil Spector and not so stripped down that it becomes sort of an unplugged version, we kind of wanted to see for all these years, which of course brings us to this. So here we are, the 5 LP edition. There's going to be 2 sort of massive box sets of this. This is the 5 LP version. The other version is a CD and Blu-ray. I'm an idiot, so I bought both because the Blu-ray actually has a full Atmos mix. But here we are, new mixes by Giles Martin and Sam O'Kell. So they went back to the actual master tapes like they've done with so many of these sets and basically redid it. And this is just a new version. And it doesn't replace what I have before. It just complements them. It's another version. But what's nice that they finally did on the box, the vinyl box set, is like it's everything. It's the same stuff that's on the CDs for the most part, I believe, are on here. As I said, I'm getting both sets because it's the fucking Beatles. As it stands, LP1 is the new mix of the original album. LP2, the Get Back Apple session. So there's all the stuff that they were doing back there. Get Back rehearsals and Apple jams. So a bunch of stuff that actually corresponds with the George Harrison Apple jams in some ways, at least aesthetically. The LP4, Get Back LP, the 1969 Glynn Johns mix. So this is the original mix, finally released as it stands. The new mix, and then 4 LPs of rehearsal, and then the Let It Be EP, which is, again, unreleased EP mixes and a new mix of original single mixes done at the time. Pretty hefty box, comes with a book. Let's crack it open and see what we've got. So if I carefully open it, we'll see how this actually behaves. I get my silly knife that I have down here for such purposes. I will try to keep the shrink on as best as I can. I welcome anybody in the comments that wishes to let me know what their outer sleeves of choice are for box sets of this girth, because I have yet to find any that I'm truly satisfied with. Most of them are just this sort of weird bag that sort of flops over. I'm not a huge fan of how that works. Let's look at the book first of all. Nice, beautiful hardcover book. Sort of a white version of that, and inside we're going to have Get Back with Let It Be sort of put over on tape. Very nice. And as expected, a whole ton of writing and images about the making of it. I mean, really just astonishing stuff. We live in a magic time where the people actually care, and idiots like me are actually there to actually buy this stuff. Really quality hardcover book, substantially better binding than the original box set. Looks like many of the photographs, just on first blush, immediately are from that. But Ken Hallett, once again, producing track by track listings and a bunch of stuff. An introduction by Giles Martin. Again, just really beautifully done, nicely laid out. I'm betting the exact same hardcover book in both the CD and the LP versions. As we crack this open, let's see what we've got here. So again, we have this nice little window box that corresponds directly to the Let It Be record. So as you slide in, let's try this again. As you slide in the record, it simply does what you would want it to, which is to replicate the look on the outside. Very nice. The record itself, half-speed remaster, which means, I mean, we always knew this was going to be, but the only way to do half-speed remaster, especially at Abbey Road, is to do it from the digital domain, which again, no complaints. This is an entire new mix, so of course it's going to be digital. No sort of fancy colored vinyl or stuff like that. Some of the originals of Let It Be actually came on colored vinyl. But nonetheless, there's a straight up record. all good to go. Exactly what we want to expect on Apple, with the black, the mylar interior and the paper on the outside. I'll be replacing those with sleeves. We have an advertisement for well, there we are, the 6-disc edition. I guess that's what I'm getting. That'll show what the digital version is, which is Let It Be 2 CDs of outtakes, jams, rehearsals, blah, 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 plus the Get Back album, and then the Blu-ray that with Dolby Atmos mix. That's really what I'm getting in the 100-page book. It sounds very familiar, doesn't it? And then there's also a Get Back book, which is the official book for the forthcoming film that I don't have yet. But, you know, if you're out there, our friends at Apple / I guess it's Universal Music, that would be lovely. Feel free to send me one. Here is the packaging for the Get Back session. Apple Sessions, Rehearsals, and Apple Jams. To be clear, this was paid for at retail. Apple Jams, the label, very, very much like the George Harrison set, typewritten logos, sort of a complement to all the stuff in the All Things Must Pass set. So one on the green Apple label, and the other one I assume is the same. Yep, the same. So a white version. What do we have here? Morning Camera, Two of Us, Maggie May, Can You Dig? I Don't Know Why I'm Moaning, 40 Blue, Let It Be, Please Please Me. Please Please Me, great. Let It Be, Take 10, I've Got a Feeling, Dig a Pony, Get Back, Like Making an Album Speech, One After 909, Don't Let Me Down, Long and Winding Road, Wake Up Little Susie, and I Me Mine, all on here. And then you have the Glynn Johns mix. This was meant to be the cover of Get Back. At one point in time, this was going to be cover. This photo ended up being used on the Blue and the Red album. Those are familiar. So they took the same sort of look on at the same location. Early Beatles, late, which was perfect for the Red and the Blue albums. Those records really are those and Stars in 45. But the Red and the Blue albums were really how I got into the Beatles. And the Beatles introduced me to the whole notion of an album band, that more than just the singles. So I had the Red and Blue, and then I finally heard the records. I'm like, wow, so this is what happens when we're actually telling a full story out on LP length. So a really beautiful production of what this record might have looked like if this is the way that they had actually gone for it. Again, everything sort of really nicely put together. And then we have the Apple EP here. Also on the properly saved, not just put in the cardboard, which is nice. But what do we have here? We have Don't Let Me Down, Let It Be New Mix Original Single Version, as discussed on this. It's always hard to read. Across the Universe, and a bunch of unreleased Glynn Johns mixes of I Me Mine. So there we are. The massive new Let It Be box set, celebrating this remarkable set of albums now, in an anticipation for the stuff that we're going to get from Peter Jackson. I cannot wait for that documentary. They just dropped another trailer today for it. I have, as I said, I've been waiting for years to watch Let It Be because I was waiting for it to be done properly. I genuinely hope that Peter Jackson's actually restoring and actually maintaining the original Let It Be cut, the so-called grumpy version, as it were, because I would love to actually watch that after the fact. I think Peter Jackson will be definitive, but I don't think we should erase the other film for the sake of doing that. Same thing as this. This doesn't erase the original version. This is just a different version, a new version, and maybe streaming services will actually prioritize this. But my hope is that in this sort of as music becomes more and more diverse and disparate, there are definitely people that will come to the record this way, but feel free to dig up the other mixes. Feel free to dig it up, especially Let It Be Naked, which is really quite remarkable after you listen to this. And on a fundamental basis, I really strongly encourage those of you that probably like the Beatles a little bit, but maybe haven't spent as much time with listening to them as albums. So often now, especially on things like streaming, we're just getting bounces. We're getting the sort of greatest hits versions all the time. These, especially here, despite all of the craziness of actually putting this together, really was a record. It was a record that told a story from beginning, middle, and end. And the way that it told it and how it told it and the songs that were chosen, I think, are absolutely crucial to the full appreciation of the record. So there we are. Let It Be by the Beatles. Please enjoy. Please subscribe. Please follow us on social media. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jason Gorber for ThatShelf.com, and we will see you next video. All the best. Take care.